Hello and welcome to Parenting with Synergy. My name is Barbara Avila and I am a family autism consultant and behavior specialist. In this short video, my goal is to teach you how to set your child up for success while also learning how to track challenging behaviors. One goal is to help you become an active member of the team, determining why your child is exhibiting the challenging behaviors that have caused you to contact us, and then how we can create a plan together for better days ahead. This is the first tutorial, Behavior 101A, Setting Your Child Up for Success. First, you need to start by defining the behavior extremely clearly for being able to track what's happening. You can't just write, "My child's having a meltdown," because that's different for every family and every child. A meltdown for one child may be screaming and falling to the ground. A meltdown for another family or child might be hurting others or hurting themselves. So be very specific when you're talking about which behavior. Are they hitting walls, kicking their brother, biting mom, screaming obscenities? Write them out very succinctly so that we can measure those particular behaviors. I'd like to talk to you next about consequences. This is where I'd like you to be very honest about what this behavior might be helping your child gain by exhibiting it. This is also what we commonly think of when we try and change a behavior. We think that when a behavior happens, we need to respond with certain consequences to make the behavior go away. So these are things that maybe you take some time to look at. Every time your child kicks his brother, for example, are they always getting a timeout? Write that down. Or when they kick their brother, sometimes does brother give them what they want? Write that down. Sometimes when a behavior happens, are you screaming at the top of your lungs because it's so frustrating? Write that down. That's the part about being honest. So whatever it is, you want to write down and get a really good clear picture of the different consequences that are happening because that behavior happens. I want you to think about it in two ways though. Think about what are the actions that parents are taking or other people, maybe teachers are doing, but then also what does the child gain from that behavior? So maybe they get immediate attention for the behavior. Maybe every time they do a challenging behavior, they get a nice tight squeeze for safety reasons to keep them safe. Maybe they do get that timeout I mentioned, which means they get removed from the situation. So write it down. Again, it isn't a time to make decisions yet. It's just for you to write down exactly what happens immediately following the behavior. So we've talked about the behaviors, making sure that you write them very succinctly in very clear terms for tracking. Next, we talked about consequences, making sure that we're writing down not only what our actions are immediately following the behavior, but then also what the child might be gaining out of exhibiting that behavior. Now we're going to move to talking about what immediately happens prior to the behavior occurring. So you can call these triggers, the fancy word for it is antecedents. But whatever it is that you see happens immediately prior to your child using that behavior to communicate something. That's what we're trying to figure out. So is the trigger always a loud, sudden noise, for example? Or is it always when you tell him no? Or sometimes when he wants something he can't have? Maybe it's when another particular child is near. Maybe it's when the lights turn off. You never know. Commonly, I hear that the triggers are all over the place, and it could be anything could send a child over. But this is the time for you to write down as many as you can think of or as many as you can observe in a given day or week so that we can use that information for planning. So just in the last 5 to 10 years, behavior specialists started talking about setting events. I'm pretty excited about sharing this with you. Setting events can be more important than anything else, and if they're not addressed, you're going to continue to go in that circle of trying to figure out the trigger and then what the consequence is, and just be going in this loop. So I'm really excited to talk to you about setting events. What this means is what sets up your child for having these behaviors or being triggered by almost anything? What's making it so that their threshold is so low that anything is triggering them, or it's hard to tell what's triggering them? So if your child always wakes up every night from 3 to 7 and isn't sleeping through the night, there's a good chance they're not at their best and that things are going to upset them during the day. Maybe they're on screen time and constantly in with therapists during the day, and that they're not getting outside enough. Maybe they need more exercise. Those could be setting events. So write down just the facts. So just that they're inside all day, screen time, things that you think of. Maybe their diet isn't so great. Maybe maybe there's stress in the household. Maybe there's parents who are fighting. Maybe there's a sibling who's sick or having trouble. So write down all those things that are stress in your family life or in this child's life that potentially could be setting them up to not be at their best. Common setting events are lack of sleep, not eating balanced meals, stress, as I mentioned, in the household, anxiety about having to perform for someone or for something, having loud or busy environments, having memories of stressful situations, the fear or of unknown or the unexpected, chaotic transitions. When I say chaotic, I also mean they could be busy transitions with a lot of people and a lot of noise, or simply unclear transitions. Maybe sometimes I'm really bad at this, telling your child maybe it's time to go and then chatting with your friend for another 20 minutes. Another common setting event could be lack of exercise, lack of sensory supports, medications or medication changes, and depression or loneliness. Replacing setting events or being able to take care of a child on these points can often ease challenging behaviors. So if you see here on your screen, setting events I have now listed as being positive. So if a child or person is exercising twice a day, if you go to triggers, they might be able to regulate through increasingly busy or loud environments. They might stay regulated so they can engage more fully in life, and the consequence is that they increase their sense of competency or confidence. I'm going to go back over to setting events, maybe walking outdoors for fresh air one time a day, or engaging in a favorite but not overstimulating activity, or getting some undivided attention from a parent sets them up so that they're more able, moving over to triggers, to regulate when things change, even if they're not as expected. Where then the behavior is, again, for them to stay more regulated, not need those behaviors that are challenging to themselves and those around them. The consequence is that, again, they feel a sense of confidence and memories of success to use for future situations. So I'd like for you to think of yourself as an observer. And one of my favorite little quotes is, turn frustration into fascination. This is your time to do that. So whenever you become frustrated with the challenging behavior, I want you to think about what happens after it, what happens right before it, what are some things that your child might be trying to communicate that they're feeling overwhelmed by other things that are happening in their lives. Here are some examples from other families. I tend to use my wipe-off board when I'm working with families, and so I want to let you know that you can, write all over pieces of paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. Setting events for this family might have been, or for this child, loud overall noises or consistent noises, parent stress when they're hungry, schedule changes, triggers if mom talks to someone else, or a phone call, or a sibling is loud when wanting something. When they get stuck. So anyway, that is an example of writing it out. Here's another one when the environment is busy, another family altogether. So what I'm trying to show you is just write all over and just really don't think it needs to be perfect the first time. Just get those notes down for your consultant so that you can together think about these pieces what's the specific behavior you're talking about, what the child seems to gain from it, what things might be seeming to trigger the behavior, and then overall, what are some things that can set your child up for success or for having more challenging times. You have just completed the first video tutorial in Parenting with Synergy. Next, your parent consultant will observe your child in at least 2 settings, for example, home and/or school. Next, they will talk with team members about challenging behaviors that you have reported to us and find out what has already been tried. We're not here to recreate the wheel. We're here to help with maybe some new ideas and to bring the team together. Next, your parent consultant will meet with you to discuss initial recommendations before then creating a written plan for the whole team to use for consistency. We do know that the more consistent team members can be in implementing a behavior plan, the faster that challenging behaviors are reduced. Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to working with you further. Take care.